Hello and welcome to the 5th episode of the Pensions and Protection podcast series in association with Royal London. I'm Kimberley Dondo, Digital Content Manager, and in today's episode, we're going to discuss why it's becoming increasingly important for protection providers to offer more than your clients might expect in terms of value and support. Today, I'm joined by Andy Walton, Protection Proposition Director at Mortgage Advice Bureau, and Tony Ormond, Strategic Partnerships Manager at Royal London. Thank you both for joining me.
Pleasure. Glad to be here.
So, Tony, can you get us started by giving us a bit of a background into yourself and your role at Royal London?
Yes, I've been at Royal London for probably 15 years now, but my role in the market, I probably started as the man from the Pru collecting premiums all those years ago. So I've been steeped in protection and also seeing the effects of people who receive claims from those protection policies. So my role at Royal London is basically managing a number of our key strategic partnerships with a number of the distributors we have in the advice space in the market.
Okay. And Andy, could you give us a bit of background into yourself?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I started in the industry when I was 18. I'm now 54, so that you can do the maths. And like Tony, I started off in it. Oh, yeah, I absolutely loved it. And every day's got better and brighter. But yeah, I started off like Tony, not as the man from the Pru, but the man from London and Manchester, which no longer exists. It hasn't done for a long time, but I was knocking on doors, selling insurance, protection all the way back then. And I guess my whole career has ended up more and more focused over the years in protection. I'm now a Protection Proposition Director at MAB. I've been here for 6 years. So anything that lives, breathes, moves in relation to protection, I tend to have something to do with. But I've worked from a provider perspective with L&G. I've worked with Aegon for L&G for a long time, Aegon for quite a while. I've worked for other large networks, all of which has been in relation to protection. So somehow my world has just revolved entirely in this area. And I suppose over time, I've worked alongside many amazing advisors. So I feel like I'm sort of stood on the shoulders of giants when I'm sort of saying what I think works. It tends to be because I've seen somebody doing something really well and just copied it and let others know. But yeah, that's my world.
Okay. So I guess you are both best placed to kind of cover the topics that we're going to look into today. And I wanted to start by asking if you could share some of the additional or value add aspects of protection propositions that you feel make the biggest positive impact with clients. Andy, would you like to start us off since you said that you know so much from standing on the shoulders of giants?
Yeah, well, remember that I'm stood on the shoulders of giants. So, But look, I was thinking about this before coming onto this podcast, and I thought years and years ago, there really were none of the value-added benefits that we're so used to today. And they've sort of crept in, I think, over time, and more have got added in. And we sort of take them for granted now. And I don't think we should. I definitely don't think advisors should. I think advisors should definitely be factoring them in when they're giving advice to customers. I think some of the added value benefits, some are built in, some come at additional cost. And some of the ones that are sort of built in, I don't think we should forget about. I think flexibility is part of what I would consider to be a value-added benefit that for most providers comes at no cost. But I think with the changing scenes of life that many customers have now, life's a lot more flexible. It's a lot more fluid. I think we should be explaining to customers about the value of being able to flex products. And as I'm here with Royal London podcast, I think it's only fair to say that I think Royal London's got one of the most flexible products out there in the market, which is really good. I think some of the other value-added benefits that we should be I think these are the ones in my list that resonate well with customers. I think one of them would be virtual GP services. We all know what's going on in the world of the NHS and GPs at the minute and trying to get through. I think that's a big tick in the box. I think anything around mental health support is another really key one. We know there's almost like a pandemic of mental health issues in the UK post-COVID. Again, I think, value-added benefits in relation to that are really important. We at MAB are very passionate about income protection. We sell enormous. I think we're going to sell 27,000 IP policies this year, and a key benefit around IP is being able to get back into work.
Yeah.
And that's a fantastic benefit that comes with most IP products. But are we explaining that to customers, how it really helps? And finally, I would sort of say, we're in the mortgage market, and so free cover arrangements that come with some providers can be really helpful, where we're trying to place mortgages quickly, efficiently, and so on. So I think those are the sorts of things that I would say are really helpful. And I'm pretty certain that Helping Hand that's offered by Royal London covers a good chunk of those things that I've just mentioned as well. But maybe Tony knows a bit more than I do about Royal London's offering on Helping Hand.
Tony, is there anything you wanted to add there?
I think it's really interesting that the way policies have developed over the years. If you go back to probably the first menu type plan, multi-benefit type plan, probably Scottish Providence in the 90s, and then back when me and Andy were pounding the streets, there was nothing along the like that at all. So the ability to have a multi-benefit flexible option type plan was the bedrock of what Royal London's sort of protection offering now started as at Bright Grey, really, all those years ago, where the menu plan was core. The Helping Hand was core to what that did, and the support service and how that's expanded over time. So flexible options to match your budget, absolutely key. Other bits and pieces around, children's cover options, where if customers decide to expand their family, they'll be able to add and take off children's options when from a critical illness point of view. Those children can then convert those options into a critical illness claim for themselves. On the income protection that Andy mentioned, such things as fracture cover. Lots of people just break a bone and have a couple of weeks off work or more. But if they are in hospital, cover the costs of getting there and being in hospital just for a short period of time. These are all flexible benefits. And obviously the Helping Hand really speaks for itself, and Roland is very, very proud of what that does and how it supports clients. And helping getting clients covered a little bit quicker than they were previously. So an underwrite later facility for larger cases with Royal London, or a very efficient online service, really helps with that kind of stuff.
Definitely. And I wanted to know, what are providers doing well to support advisors to build financial resilience into clients' lives?
Yeah, so, I think there's been a lot of positive moves by providers in this area, as we're discussing. I mean, we've actually got a number of people inside Mortgage Advice Bureau that try and keep up to date with the changes that come down the track, and they're almost always improvements to the proposition. So I think a good bit of advice for advisors that's just come into my mind is that we've got a PDF that we keep updating, and it's got each provider as a heading, and we call it provider USPs, but it's generally listing out the things that we're talking about, or the value added benefits, because one thing's for certain, it's to memorize all of these value added benefits and all of the different options. You're getting into brain surgeon territory. Well, you are certainly, if you consider my brain. So we've really found that advisors they've just found it so helpful to have this with them at point of sale with a customer. So if it's looking like it's going towards a different provider, or if a particular benefit is sort of coming to the fore, then you can quite easily say, okay, now here's what we're talking about with this particular provider. This is what they do offer you. And I think from a provider perspective, certainly from a training point of view, we're seeing a lot more help and support and focus into our advisors to help them keep up to speed with what these benefits are doing and how they're actually helping real customers, because this is often missed out. I think, you can list out all of the things that are there as a value added benefit, but what examples are there and how do they actually work in practice? And some providers are saying, look, we'll give you, Mr. Advisor, access to our value added benefits without you taking out a policy so you can experience them. And then you're more able to relay those benefits across to customers. I think that's a really positive thing. It's certainly helped in our world. So, and one other thing that's being developed, and we're seeing more of this happen, is some providers are sort of making the value added benefits far more accessible. I think if you contacted every single customer with a protection policy and asked them to tell you what value added benefits have you got on this policy, I genuinely think they would struggle to tell you. I think they'd actually struggle to tell you what the core benefits are. So I think we really should be doing more and more from a provider perspective to help customers and remind customers what they have got. And some providers have now got, sort of digital apps, ways that customers can interact with these different benefits on their phone and so on. I think that's really, really positive, because it sort of takes a dusty old document that you might have in a drawer or a PDF that's on an email that you've forgotten about, and it's put it in front of you. I think all providers should be reminding customers on a fairly regular basis, this is what you've got, and this is when and how you can use these things.
Yeah, I think it's all about accessibility. Like you said, having it on your phone, something that you always carry with you, you're most likely to be like, oh, let me take a look. Is there something I'm doing in my life applicable to this situation where I can get, that value add that I didn't know about? And I wanted to know, Tony, from your perspective as a provider, what are you guys doing at Royal London?
So from our advisor hub, we'd be supporting with a range of sort of tools, articles, guides that could be used with customers. We've got a financial wellbeing tool that can point them to way to gain some of the support that Andy was just talking about there under the financial resilience, being part of, Consumer Duty as it is now. From an advisor education piece, we produce really good content on webinars. I think the COVID years, as we'd call them now, really brought to the fore the usefulness of webinars and how, one, we can do them live, and two, they're recorded for advisors to go and view as and when. So that helps. I would say our key at Royal London specifically, our key USP from advisor support is our sales teams and within distribution. And we've got quite a large sales force, and I would encourage any advisors kind of listening to this to make sure they're engaged with their BDMs, because they are the ones who have the knowledge that can steer them in the right direction to support. Advisors tend to be time poor, and so by utilizing somebody else's knowledge and just spending a little time speaking to their sales contacts, I think they can really get some value add from the time that they're going to spend on that.
Yeah, definitely. And do you think offering value add support services contributes to providing clients with a well-rounded protection package? Andy, do you want to take that first?
Well, yeah, I 100% do. And hopefully this is coming across in what I'm saying. I genuinely think these aren't gimmicks. I think from what I can see, they provide real benefits for customers. And when you think about it, when we're talking about life insurance, critical illness, and even income protection, when you look at the risk reality results, most customers, thank goodness, are actually less likely to claim than they are to actually claim, because the chances of these things happening are, especially dying and so on, are actually very, very small, especially during the mortgage term. We spend a lot of time looking at customers' mortgage period. I mean, because we're all going to die one day, but we know that life assurance is generally set up to coincide with either retirement or mortgage events. So I think for me, when you look at value-added support, they tend to be things that you can interact with and use before making the full claim on being off work sick, getting critical illness or dying. And therefore, this policy becomes much more relevant to the customer. And not only relevant to the customer, many of these services that are value add also support not only the life assured, but also members of the immediate family, and certainly partners and children are very often included in these things. And therefore, it isn't just about me anymore, it's about my entire family. And therefore, I think what it can also do is keep the policy much more front and center in the customer's heart and mind, and not something that they think, oh, well, we've hit cost of living crisis. What's the first thing that's going to go? Well, let's get rid of that insurance policy because we might not need it. We're unlikely to claim on it. And therefore it goes. Now they think, wait a minute, we're also getting rid of GP services. We're also getting rid of fracture cover. We're getting rid of physio help and support, and so on and so forth. And therefore, I actually think the persistency of protection improves if we spend a bit of time with the customer explaining to them how these things work on top of what the core reason for doing the policy. That's still there. We're not taking away, are we, from the core reason of doing life assurance, critical illness and IP. But these things definitely line up very closely to those. And as we say, they're much more likely to be of value and to be used in the shorter term.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on that, Tony?
Well, it's as I said earlier, it's core to where we're underdeveloped from out of the sort of bright grey with the helping hand service. Fundamentally, it's a very valuable wellbeing and support services, and one of the keys it's free to all of our advised protection clients, and that comes from the ability that we can invest our profits back in a business from being a mutual insurer, and that's where the benefits of Helping Hand are effectively paid for. It's not an additional cost. But initially, if somebody engages with their My Royal London dashboard, they can go through an online health assessment that might point them in the direction of certain support services that they might need based on their answers to that assessment. The virtual GP service that's in there has been greatly used over the last kind of 18 months for obvious reasons that Andy mentioned earlier about the ability to get that. If somebody needs some support with their mental health, that's a very difficult thing for people to talk about to somebody else. So if they can find something on an online sort of guidance or support in their own time via an NHS approved app, then that can really work. And a particular other one that I've actually used myself is like the physiotherapy support. So if somebody a lot of people have been spending a lot of time at home and sitting in really awkward positions with bad backs working from home, and an online sort of physiotherapy support is really easy to use, and it just sort of steers you in the right direction to do some exercises at home in your own that you just probably wouldn't think about unless you'd spoke to somebody. So all these supports services are free and really, really good. And then if somebody does have a crisis in their life and they need that support from a practical and an emotional way around dealing with whatever's happened to them, that's really key as well. The feedback that we get from people who engage with our Helping Hand service when they do really need it is amazing, really. Most people probably won't use this, but unfortunately they won't, because nothing's gone wrong in their life. But if it does go wrong and they need some support, it's there for them. And that, I think, is absolutely key, because a lot of people won't talk to those ones that are close to them. They just need support from somebody. And I've seen many evidences of where, the dedicated nurse that they have has really provided some great support for them.
Yeah. And finally, we are in a post-consumer duty world. So I wanted to know what your opinion is on why it's so important for advisors to build ongoing relationships with their clients.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge one, isn't it? It's about ongoing relationships. It's actually a key word that comes out in the Consumer Duty FCA paper. And if you search for this word, you'll be surprised how many times it comes out. It's the word journey.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it is this word journey, because we should be going on a journey with customers. Mm-hmm. And I honestly think, I don't know whether you'd agree with this, but I honestly think that from a protection perspective, we're quite poor as an industry at going on a journey with a customer. I think the problem is that what we do is analyze customers' needs today. We find a solution. The solution fits for today, fine, but it's a very long-term product that we've sold. Often, think our average term of a policy is 27 years at the moment. So they're very, very long-term policies. And the danger is that we walk away and we forget the customer, and there's nothing in place from an advice perspective to ensure that we go on a journey with a customer and ensure that the products that we sold today are still relevant tomorrow. And just a bit of anecdotal evidence on this. MAB recently had its big conference, and there's around about 1,500 people sat in the auditorium, and I was asked to parade around on the stage and talk about protection. And what I did, I asked the audience a number of questions and asked them to stand up and remain standing if any of these things applied to them in the last 5 years. So I asked people to stand up if they'd had children, if they'd moved house, if their relationships had changed, and if they'd changed jobs, things like that. And by the end of asking just 4 or 5 of those types of questions, I would estimate at least 90% of the entire room was on their feet. Yeah. And I'm just saying, look around, right? Because your customers are the same people as you. They're human beings. They're going through many changes of circumstances, and not least of which, and this one, you know, you imagine we just come through COVID, and so you might have somebody that's identical situation, and you saw them, let's say BC, before COVID, and you saw them then. Their situation's identical now, but guess what? Their risk appetite has changed. They're much more sensitive over being off work sick. They've seen what a pandemic did. And so their whole attitude to risk has changed. And therefore, if their ATR has changed, they might now be either, more willing to commit more per month to protection, or commit money today when they wouldn't have committed any beforehand. So I think we 100%, and we're super focused on this under Consumer Duty to ensure that we do genuinely go on a journey with customers. We're putting in place nurture journeys. We're working with providers to ensure that we get regular information out, and value-added benefits and benefit statements and reminders to customers and all sorts of things. We're not trying to bombard them on a daily basis, but I think, as I say, as an industry, we've probably neglected communication to customers and help remind them what they have got. And I think if we do that, it will actually keep it in their front of their mind, and perhaps more often use these services that we've been talking about. As I said at the beginning, I think there's a lot of customers that if you told them that they could access a virtual GP, they will go, "What, can I?" Well, yeah, because you got helping hand. Well, I didn't know that I could do that. Do you know what I mean? That's really where we've got to get to.
Yeah, for sure. And Tony, would you agree with that you have to kind of take or join the client on their journey?
Absolutely, yeah. Protection is the bedrock of any kind of financial advice, or certainly should be. And the sort of online tools that have come to the fore over the last few years, I think, are really useful to help an advisor do that with his clients. Our online dashboard, where they can host the customer documents. The customer can self-serve on some basic details. They can download the documents. They can access what I said earlier around the GP 24/7 and that kind of stuff. If there's a constant drumbeat from an advisor and his communications to his customer to engage with the online tools that are there, that's great. We can make it easier for a customer to set up a policy in such a way that it's easy for us to pay the monies to whoever it's supposed to go to. So, for instance, a single life policy can use our beneficiary nomination at an outset, which is a really, really easy thing to do. It's just making sure what a customer intended to happen with the money, if someone's paid out, does happen, but reminding the customer on a regular basis around how they can access these tools, whether it be marketing, annual reviews, as Andy said, some of the change in circumstances. Historically, maybe protection's been sold as a bit of a commodity and based on price a lot of the time. I think we really, Consumer Duty has really. It was happening before Consumer Duty, but Consumer Duty has forced that kind of conversation and that regular engagement to happen happen going forward post-July. And I think that's a really, really important thing. And a lot of the stuff that we do as a provider is there to support that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think we covered all of our main points in this episode. So thank you so much for joining me both.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
And that brings us to the end of our episode in association with Royal London. We hope you've enjoyed listening and learned something new. If you want to find out more about Royal London's protection proposition and how it can help your clients, visit advisor.royallondon.com/peoplepowered. See you next time.